Hi, folks. Welcome to Great Books, Big Ideas. I'm Jim. Time for a mini book haul. We'll call this a skirmish in the ongoing 2025 book haul wars. And I went to the Downingtown Public Library, which is about a 15-minute drive away from my home. And it was the first time I went to this library sale. Next week is the main Branch Chester County Library sale, one I usually go to every year. But I didn't realize that Downingtown Library had its own sale. So I thought I would give it a look. And we popped in the car and headed over there. And I found 5 books, not much at this haul. All of these were $1, so I didn't break the bank. We'll start with a couple of science fiction novels by Arthur C. Clarke and Gentry Lee. So we have Rama II and The Garden of Rama. Don't know much about these books. I've read a couple Arthur C. Clarke books, and those would include 2001, Space Odyssey, and I think it's called Childhood's End. Is that the name of it? It's a famous book by him. Yeah, Childhood's End. What I don't know whether I read was Rendezvous with Rama, which I think is the first in the series, right? I thought I would give it a shot, and honestly, I didn't realize it was a co-authored book until I got home. So the co-author is Gentry Lee, and did a little bit of research on this, and I'm pretty sure that Gentry Lee essentially wrote most of these books, and Arthur C. Clarke was like the idea man behind it and collaborated with him. But anyway, I'll read you the blurbs about this. I don't know if people can tell me in the comments if I really need to read the first installment in the series before getting to these. I'm assuming that's the case, which means that these will be shelved for a little while. But, I like to read things in order, usually. So I don't think I've read that first installment, and I definitely don't have it. So anyway, here's what Rama II is all about. The Ramans are back. Years ago, the enormous and enigmatic alien spacecraft called Rama sailed through our solar system as mind-boggling proof that life existed or had existed elsewhere in the universe. Now, at the dawn of the 23rd century, another ship is discovered, hurtling toward us. A crew of Earth's best and brightest minds is assembled to rendezvous with the massive vessel. They are armed with everything we know about Raman technology and culture, but nothing can prepare them for what they are about to encounter on board Rama II, cosmic secrets that are startling, sensational, and perhaps even deadly. Let's just read the first paragraph. The great radar pulse generator Excalibur, powered by nuclear explosions, had been out of service for almost half a century. It had been designed and developed in a frantic effort during the months following the transit of Rama through the solar system. When it was first declared operational in 2132, Excalibur's announced purpose was to give Earth ample warning of any future alien visitors, one as gigantic as Rama could be detected at interstellar distances, years, it was hoped, before it could have any effect on human affairs. That's paragraph 1 of Rama II. That's the second in the series. And I'm pretty sure this is the third in the series. So what's up with the Garden of Rama? Okay. In the spellbinding Arthur C. Clarke tradition, here is an exhilarating adventure into the hearts of both the universe and mankind. A Garden of Rama. By the 23rd century, Earth has already had 2 encounters with massive, mysterious, robotic spacecraft from beyond our solar system. The incontestable proof of an alien technology that far exceeds our own. Now, 3 human cosmonauts are trapped aboard a labyrinthine Raman vessel where it will take all of their physical and mental resources to survive. Only 12 years into their journey do these intrepid travelers learn their destination, and face their ultimate challenge, a rendezvous with a Raman base and the unseen architects of their galactic home. The cosmonauts have given up family, friends, and possessions to live a new kind of life. But the answers that await them at the Rama node will require an even greater sort of sacrifice if humanity is indeed ready to learn the awe-inspiring truth. This one sounds a little more enticing to me than the last one, just because it seems like it's got more of a human element, maybe more character-driven. But let's read the first paragraph of The Garden of Rama by Arthur C. Clarke and Gentry Lee. And these are published by Spectre, the imprint of Bantam Books. And this edition was from 1992. So we start with Nicole's journal, December 29th, 2200. First paragraph. 2 nights ago at 10:44 Greenwich time on the Earth, Simone Tasso Wakefield greeted the universe. It was an incredible experience. I thought I had felt powerful emotions before, but nothing in my life, not the death of my mother, nor the Olympic gold medal in Los Angeles, not my 36 hours with Prince Henry, and not even the birth of Genevieve under the watchful eyes of my father at the hospital in Tours, was as intense as my joy and relief when I finally heard Simone's first cry. So begin the book with the birth of a baby. That's paragraph 1. And let's read about the author. So Arthur C. Clarke, I'm sure you know of. He's a seminal figure in sci-fi. He really needs no introduction. But Gentry Lee is an author I don't know much about at all, but his biography is pretty interesting. Don't know if he's still alive. I think he may be. Anyway, Gentry Lee has been chief engineer on Project Galileo, director of science analysis and mission planning for NASA's Viking mission to Mars, and partner with Carl Sagan in the design, development, and implementation of the television series Cosmos. Well, that's a great resume right there. He is the author of Bright Messengers, a new Bantam hardcover, and co-author of Rama Revealed, Rama II, and the Garden of Rama. He lives in Texas, where he is at work on his first solo novel. So a guy who sort of doesn't start out as an author, but adds it to his impressive resume. So those are the 2 sci-fi pickups. Again, I'll have to wait until the first volume in the series shows up, Rendezvous with Rama. But I might dip into them and just sample them and see if they're interesting to me. These will not be keepers. I guarantee it. They will move along at some point. Next is another mass market paperback. This is a Bantam classic edition of The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I have not read any Wilkie Collins at all. I always see the name in the used shops and the library sales. And this is one of his more famous novels. It's now a PBS mystery presentation. So anyway, here is what this book is about. I rather like the design of these Bantam classics this is probably from the 80s, I'm going to say, based on the font. 1985. So that sans serif type, and it looks like it could be like an avant-garde typeface, or like a variation on Helvetica, something like that. Anyway, here's what The Woman in White is about. There, in the middle of the broad, bright high road, there, as if it had that moment sprung out of the earth or dropped from the heavens, stood the figure of a solitary woman, dressed from head to foot in white garments. The aforementioned Woman in White, I assume. Thus young Walter Hartwright first meets the mysterious Woman in White in what soon became one of the most popular novels of the 19th century. Secrets, mistaken identities, surprise revelations, amnesia, locked rooms and locked asylums, and an unorthodox villain made this mystery thriller an instant success when it first appeared in 1860. And it has continued to enthrall readers ever since, from the hero's foreboding before his arrival at Limmeridge House to the nefarious plot concerning the beautiful Laura. The breathtaking tension of Collins's narrative created a new literary genre of suspense fiction, which profoundly shaped the course of English popular writing. Collins's other great mystery, The Moonstone, has been called the finest detective story ever written, but it was this work that so gripped the imagination of the world that Wilkie Collins had his own tombstone inscribed, author of The Woman in White. I guess that was maybe the book he was most proud of. Wilkie Collins is also of interest to me because he was a good friend of Charles Dickens, and I'd like to know more about that friendship. So let's take a look, by the way, at the first paragraph of The Woman in White and see how Wilkie Collins reads. It's a 3-part novel. I will skip the preamble, which is only a page, and we'll read the first 2 paragraphs because the first paragraph is quite short. It's chapter 1 is called The Narrative of Walter Hartwright of Clements Inn, London. It was the last day of July. The long, hot summer was drawing to a close, and we, the weary pilgrims of the London pavement, were beginning to think of the cloud shadows on the cornfields and the autumn breezes on the seashore. For my own poor part, the fading summer left me out of health, out of spirits, and if the truth must be told, out of money as well. During the past year, I had not managed my professional resources as carefully as usual, and my extravagance now limited me to the prospect of spending the autumn economically between my mother's cottage at Hampstead and my own chambers in town. Let me read one more paragraph, because we're getting close to a setup here. We're finding out about this character, and he's in some bad straits financially. Okay, to continue. The evening, I remember, was still and cloudy. The London air was at its heaviest. The distant hum of the street traffic was at its faintest. The small pulse of the life within me and the great heart of the city around me seemed to be sinking in unison, languidly and more languidly with the sinking sun. I roused myself from the book which I was dreaming over rather than reading, and left my chambers to meet the cool night air in the suburbs. It was one of the 2 evenings in every week which I was accustomed to spend with my mother and my sister, so I turned my steps northward in the direction of Hampstead. Nice scene setting there. That 3rd paragraph is getting moody. An auspicious beginning to The Woman in White. I'm getting on the hook already. These next 2 are Penguin Classics, which, if you've been following the channel, I do collect Penguin Classics, so these hopefully will stick around for a while. And the first is, I checked my database of Penguin Classics, and I did not have these titles. The first is Bartolomé de las Casas, a short account of the destruction of the Indies. This is a history, and a disturbing history at that. So let's find out what this one's all about. Bartolomé de las Casas was the first and fiercest critic of Spanish colonialism in the New World. An early traveler to the Americas who sailed on one of Columbus's voyages, Las Casas was so horrified by the wholesale massacre he witnessed that he dedicated his life to protecting the native community. He wrote a short account of the destruction of the Indies in 1542, a shocking catalog of mass slaughter, torture, and slavery, which showed that the evangelizing vision of Columbus had descended under later conquistadors into genocide. Dedicated to Philip II to alert the Castilian crown to these atrocities and demand that the Indians be entitled to the basic rights of humankind, the passionate work of documentary vividness outraged Europe and contributed to the idea of the Spanish Black Legend that would last for centuries. Nigel Griffin's translation conveys the compelling immediacy of Las Casas' writing. This edition also contains an introduction discussing his life, work, and political legacy. Yet another reason to get Penguin Classics, because you get those fine introductions. And let me read you the first paragraph of this book, which comes with some visuals like maps. Okay, let's read from the synopsis. This is actually going to cover a little over a page, but we might as well get our money's worth. Everything that has happened since the marvelous discovery of the Americas, from the short-lived initial attempts of the Spanish to settle there right down to the present day, has been so extraordinary that the whole story remains quite incredible to anyone who has not experienced it at first hand. It seems indeed to overshadow all the deeds of famous men of the past, no matter how heroic, and to silence all talk of other wonders of the world. Prominent amid the aspects of the story which have caught the imagination are the massacres of innocent peoples, the atrocities committed against them, and, among other horrific excesses, the ways in which towns, provinces, and whole kingdoms have been entirely cleared of their native inhabitants. Today we would call that ethnic cleansing, a term I hate. It sounds so sanitary and hygienic, doesn't it? Brother Bartolome de las Casas, or Casas, came to the Spanish court after he entered the order to give our Lord the Emperor an eyewitness account of these enormities, not a whisper of which had at that time reached the ears of people here. He also related these same events to several people he met during his visit, and they were deeply shocked by what he had to say and listened open-mouthed to his every word. They later begged him and pressed him to set down in writing a short account of some of them, and this he did. Some years later, he observed that not a few of the people involved in this story had become so anesthetized to human suffering by their own greed and ambition that they had ceased to be men in any meaningful sense of the term and had become, by dint of their own wicked deeds, so totally degenerate and given over to a reprobate mind that they could not rest content with their past achievements in the realms of treachery and wickedness when they honed to perfection the art of cruelty in order to wipe human beings from a large part of the globe. But were now pestering the crown to grant them official authority and license once again to commit their dreadful deeds, or even, if such a thing were conceivable, to devise yet worse atrocities. He therefore decided to present this summary of what he had written to His Royal Highness the Prince, to implore him to do everything in his power to persuade His Majesty to frustrate the plans of these men. It seemed to him a good idea to have the account printed to enable His Highness to read it more easily. This is the background to the following epitome or short account. This sounds like quite the read. I'm sure it's going to be disturbing. It's a short book. I see no reason not to start this one soon. Yeah, you have to brace yourself for reads like this. But what interests me a lot about these types of accounts that are contemporaneous is this notion, that maybe people weren't, things were like, well, that was then and this is now. We don't want to apply our moral standards to the moral standards of the past. Well, we call that presentism, maybe. Here's a guy who, in the same day, he was on a ship with Columbus. He saw these atrocities, heard about them first or second hand, reported on them, and wanted to do something about it. So the moral outrage was real, just as there was moral outrage during American slavery in the 19th century with the abolitionist movement, right? These people knew what was happening was wrong, and they said something, they did something, they wrote something about it. So I'm very much looking forward to reading the introduction so I get some more background here and learn about what impact De las Casas might have had. But yeah, pretty interesting. Okay, last up is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. This is the second Penguin Classics edition I found at the Downingtown Public Library sale yesterday, with an introduction by Ann Charters. This is not the only On the Road edition we have in the house. I'll talk first of all about my first read of On the Road. I guess I've only read the book once. But I've read some passages since then, but only one. I've only read it one time all the way through, and I had this cheap mass market paperback. And if I can find a representation of the cover online, I'll share it right over here. But it was a cheesy '60s mass market paperback. Bought it used. Was very beat up. But it got the job done. I got through it. I have a very vivid memory of reading that book on the bus on the way to Austin, Texas, to go to graduate school. My car was in bad shape. I think it was that last semester I was at University of Texas. I was finishing my master's, and I just took the bus down. I took the bus back when I moved out. And I read On the Road, at least portions of it, on that long Greyhound bus trip, which was kind of appropriate to be on the road, on a bus, crossing the country, headed down to the Lone Star State. Anyway, this is a nice newer Penguin Classics edition. It's floppy. It's in good shape. It's from 1991, it looks like. And I couldn't pass it up. I'll add it to my Penguin collection. Looks good. But it's not the only edition of On the Road that we have already. So that mass market paperback is long gone. I don't miss it. I won't want it back. But we do have this edition. It's called a Penguin Essential Edition of On the Road. And it has French flaps. And I don't know much about the Penguin Essentials series, but it looks a lot like a Penguin Deluxe Classics edition. This is from 2005, actually. So this is more recent than this guy. But anyway, it has the deckled edges. It's in good shape. We haven't read it yet. So that's nice. And then we also have the original scroll. So if you know the legend of On the Road, Kerouac wrote this on a giant roll of paper. He just typed it out from start to finish, I think without paragraph breaks perhaps. You can get a flavor for here. Like you can just see it's like one ongoing novel-length paragraph. And so that's something I'd like to get through at some point. This is the uncut version too. So it's like not been edited. And I would want to give this a read at some point. He did it on 8 sheets of tracing paper, which he taped together to form a scroll. And that was the stuff of literary legend. So what is On the Road about? Well, you probably already know this. It's a famous book. It's the book that defined the Beat Generation. But here's what Penguin Classics has to say. Pulsing with the rhythms of 50s underground America, jazz, sex, illicit drugs, and the mystery and promise of the open road, Jack Kerouac's classic novel of freedom and longing defined what it meant to be beat and has inspired every generation since its initial publication more than 50 years ago. Based on Kerouac's adventures with Neil Cassidy, On the Road tells the story of 2 friends whose 4 cross-country road trips are a quest for meaning and true experience. Written with a mixture of sad-eyed naivete and wild abandon, And imbued with Kerouac's love of America, his compassion for humanity, and his sense of language as jazz, On the Road is the quintessential American vision of freedom and hope, vibrant, compelling, and full of wonder. Let's read the first paragraph of On the Road. You'll get a nice sense of Kerouac's style, I think. I first met Dean not long after my wife and I split up. I'd just gotten over a serious illness that I won't bother to talk about, except that it had something to do with a miserably weary split up and my feeling that everything was dead. With the coming of Dean Moriarty began the part of my life you could call my life on the road. Before that, I'd often dreamed of going west to see the country, always vaguely planning and never taking off. Dean is the perfect guy for the road because he actually was born on the road when his parents were passing through Salt Lake City in 1926 in a jalopy on their way to Los Angeles. First reports of him came to me through Chad King, who'd shown me a few letters from him written in a New Mexico reform school. I was tremendously interested in the letters because they so naively and sweetly asked Chad to teach him all about Nietzsche and all the wonderful intellectual things that Chad knew. At one point, Carlo and I talked about the letters and wondered if we would ever meet the strange Dean Moriarty. This is all far back, when Dean was not the way he is today, when he was a young jail kid, shrouded in mystery. Then news came that Dean was out of reform school and was coming to New York for the first time. Also, there was talk that he had just married a girl named Mary Lou. And that's paragraph 1 of the edited On the Road. It's a good thing we didn't read paragraph 1 of the scroll version of On the Road, or we would be here probably for like 24 hours. And that is On the Road. Now, On the Road, just my own reading experience of it, that first read through, I didn't particularly fall in love with it. Like, it was sloppy. It was the sort of the optimism and the ebullience of it, and it was somehow off-putting at times. On other times, it was very endearing. But I think the book has grown on me in retrospect. And when I've come back to passages and reread them, I appreciate what he's doing a little bit more, and I forgive him more for some of the flaws in it. And I've read a lot of other Kerouac, so I think that was the first Kerouac I had read. So I think the more you read of an author, the more accustomed you get to his style. I really like the Dharma Bums. Probably think that's overall maybe possibly a better novel. I'm not sure. I need to give this a reread, but it's nice to have it in a Penguin Classics edition. And people are going to have widely varying opinions still to this day about the quality of Kerouac's writing, his books. But you can't deny the fact that On the Road is a classic and that it does capture something of the romance of the open road. Read this in conjunction with Walt Whitman's Song of the Open Road, and I think you'll get what Jack Kerouac and the other beat writers were after. And there's just sort of, this romance of automobiles and crossing the country. Like, you cross this continent and you can go from coast to coast, and it's sort of a rite of passage for a lot of Americans. I know I took, with my family when I was little, we did a cross-country road trip to California and back, and that was really, really influential in how I saw my country, and it exposed me to new geography, and I loved it. I loved that trip. Took another road trip with my wife when I was, I guess we weren't married yet, actually, but in the 90s, we did a road trip out to the Rocky Mountains. I took another road trip with a friend to University of Colorado to pick up a friend and bring her back from college. And some of these road trips were like really long hauls. So this is a book that's about all that. It's about that, what life is like as you're traveling from point A to point B, and the interesting people and scrapes that you get into along the way, and not really the romance of it, just the feeling of travel and getting away, but not in any kind of not in like a White Lotus kind of like, let's go to some exotic resort and pamper ourselves. This is just more down to earth, like where the rubber meets the road. So those are the books that I got at the Downingtown Library. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.